Thank you, Ricky. Has everyone had a nice time so far? Great. Ngugireading, novelist, essayist, playwright, journalist, editor, academic and social activist, was born in 1938 in Kamiritu in Kiambu district of Kenya. Between 1952 and 1962, his family was cut up in the Mau Mau uprising against the British colonialists. His half-brother, Mwagi, was actively involved in the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, and his mother was tortured in Karimitu, home guard post. He received his elementary education in Kenya, and so he also received his secondary education in Kenya, and then went on to Makerere University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in English in 1963. Ngugi burst into the literary scene in East Africa with the performance of his first major play, The Black Hermit, at the National Theatre in Kampala, Uganda, as part of the celebration of Uganda's independence in 1962. Ngugi Speaks for the Continent headlined the Makerere, the student newspaper, in review of his performance. That was a review that was written by Trevor Whitlock, one of his professors. In a highly productive literary period, Ngugi wrote additional 8 short stories, 2 one-act plays, 2 novels, and a regular column for the Sunday Nation under the title As I See It. His first novel, Weep Not Child, was published to critical acclaim in 1964. It was the first novel in English to be published by a writer from East Africa. His second novel, The River Between, was published in 1965 and with the Mama Rebellion as its background. It described the unhappy romance between Christians and non-Christians. It is currently on Kenya's National Secondary School syllabus list. In 1967, Ngugi published his third novel, A Grain of Wheat. It was a turning point in the formal and ideological direction of his works. Meta-narrative lines and multiple viewpoints unfolding at different times and spaces replaced their linear, temporal unfolding of the plot from a single viewpoint. This was a departure from the normal way that novels are narrated. This new approach was more communalist. It was more of trying to make sure that it's the collective that is telling the story of the community and not just one person narrating for the community. In 1967, Ngugi became a lecturer in English literature at the University of Nairobi. He taught there until 1977, while in between also serving as fellow in creative writing at Makerere and as visiting associate professor of English and African Studies at Northwestern University between 1970 and 1971. During his tenure in Nairobi, Ngugi was at the center of the politics of English departments in Africa, championing the change of name from English to simply literature to reflect world literature with an African and third world bias. The year 1977 forced dramatic turns in Ngugi's life and career. His first novel in 10 years, Petals of Blood, was published in July of that year. That novel painted a harsh and unsparing picture of life in neo-colonial Kenya. It was received with even more emphatic critical acclaim in Kenya and all over the world. The Kenya Weekly Review described it as a bombshell, and the Sunday Times of London described it as capturing every form and shape that power can take. In 1976, he helped set up the Karimitu Community Education and Cultural Center, which, among other things, organized African theater in the area. The uncensored political message of his 1977 play, Ingatika Ndenda, I Will Marry When I Want, provoked the then Kenya Vice President, Daniel Arap Moi, to order his arrest. While detained in prison, Ngugi wrote the first modern novel in Gikuyu, Gaitani Mutaraba Ini, Devil on the Cross, on prison-issued toilet paper, because that was all that was available for him to write at that time while he was detained in prison. After his release, following a worldwide campaign in which Amnesty International actually named him a prisoner of conscience, he was not reinstated to his job as professor at Nairobi University. He was in fact banned from holding any faculty position in Kenya, so he had to proceed on exile, and he could not return until Arap Moi was voted out of office 22 years after. His later works include Matigari, which was published in 1986, a satire based on a Gikuyu folktale. In fact, this was a very funny stage in his literary career, because Arap Moi, who was by then the president of Kenya, thought that the main character in that novel was a real person. So he actually issued a warrant of arrest for that fictional character to be arrested. But by the time he discovered that it was just a fictional character, he then decided, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrest all copies of Matigari. And he went to all the bookstores in Kenya and disappeared all copies of Matigari that was being displayed on the shelves. In 1992, Ngugi became a professor of comparative literature and performance studies at New York University, where he held the Eric Maria Remark Chair. He is currently a distinguished professor of English and comparative literature, as well as director of the International Center for Writing and Translation at the University of California, Irvine. Ngugi has continued to write prolifically, publishing in 2006 and in 2006 what some have described as his crowning achievement, Wizard of the Coast, an English translation of the Gikuyu language novel, Murogi wa Kagogo. Ngugi's books have been translated into more than 30 languages, and they continue to be the subject of books, critical monographs, and dissertations. Paralleling his academic and literary life has been his role in the production of literature, providing as an editor a platform for other people's voices. He has edited the following literary journals: Penpoint, Zuka, Gala, and Mutiri. He has also continued to speak around the world, like he's doing here today, at numerous universities and as a distinguished speaker. He is recipient of many honors, including the 2001 Nonino International Prize for Literature and 7 honorary doctorates. He is also an honorary member of the American Academy of Arts. Distinguished deans, faculty, staff, and students of Broward College, please welcome a distinguished son of Africa, my brother, Ngugi wa Tiongo.
Now, a little bit. Can you hear me? I'll make sure. Hello. Testing. Okay, you can hear me? And the one who is serving food over there, can you hear me? No, he can't hear me. So, anyway, he's very busy. Right. Now, what I want to do tonight, because I've been talking a lot earlier today and so on, I think I want to kind of, in a sense, present myself a little bit through my writings. You've been told the actual background in the introduction, thank you very much. But I just want to, since you are most of you who are here writers, to see me through the evolution of my writing And you know, I'm going to frame this in the context of my mother. But before I go to that one, let me say how really I'm going to take a lot of good memories from this wonderful college. And I've got very many strong images in my mind. Of course, fellow writers who were presented with awards earlier, you know, that's a very strong image. You know, but even early in the day, I had two images that I want to share with you because they, wow, touched my heart. One was, I think he's called Benjamin. There's a student here who asked a question. And since he looked like me a little bit, I was very surprised when he said he was a student. But later I did actually learn that he was a student here, that he is, I think he was going to engineering, then he decided to switch on to electrical engineering or something like that anyway. Later I had a talk with him and I asked him, actually, you don't mind, can you tell me how old you are? He said quite happily, oh, I'm 70. In fact, I'm a grandfather. I've got children who are doing this and my grandchildren are there, you know. So, in a way, that made me feel better in this way because I was able to tell him, oh, I'm 76, so you're my younger brother. So, that was amazing what he is doing here. Especially when he told me that he's an A student. Incredible, great, very proud of him, you know. But then I was signing books, I think in this corner. When a mother, you know, to me she looked very young, you know, and her son, you know, in fact, well, she, you know, to me this is my son, young man, she was with a young man there, you know, so I thought they were both the graduates, okay? Or indeed, it happened they were graduates, except that one was the mother of the other. They come from Bangladesh, she told me. And she proudly said, we actually sit in the same desk for the same classes. It's amazing. So I asked jokingly, how do you, who makes who do the homework? And she said, actually, we help each other. My English is not up to grammatically up where it should be. And since he was born here, he helps me grammatically the English. But then I have experience of life more than he has. So I'm able to help him when, although he can understand some things in a grammatical way, but because of experience, I have more experience, so I also help him. So they help each other. I was really amazed. I mean, you know, this. And I was still in amazement when another pair came, another mother and son, you know. I think the son was there, but the mother told me, as son, they're going to school here, she and her son, and I think she's doing business, and her son is doing a degree, I think, in engineering. Oh my God, this is a great college, and I'm glad to have been here to interact with you guys. I think what you're doing is very wonderful. I have a book called Dreams in a Time of War. In a sense, what we are doing here in Broad College is nurturing people's dreams. And I say this because sincerely, because, you know, Ricardo, where is he? Yeah, he's over there, a professor, whatever. See that corner? He actually, later he told me, well, do you remember the book you sent for me? Which one? And he reminds me of a time when we met at the bookshop called Books and Bookmen or something like that in Miami. And indeed I did sign a book for him. And I said, follow your dreams. And now he's here, a professor, following his dreams, hosting me, and hosting that writing program, all those writers. I mean, this is really wonderful. And I really, so what I'm trying to say in other words, for me, a very memorable visit, and I carry several memories, and I'm glad you have a dean who is sort of kind of visionary. No, there are two types of visionaries. There are people who are very practical, they do not have visions. The others who are visionaries, but they are very unpractical. The happy is the one who combines the practice and vision, and we call them practical visionaries. So you've got a practical visionary in your team. And I want to talk about the passage I want to read. I read this earlier, but I like reading it because that's how I went to school. It's my mother who did not know how to read and write who sent me to school, And I want to start with her, then read from Weak Not Child, and end with a section from In the House of Interpreter. But before I do that, I just want to acknowledge the many people I've met, but I want to acknowledge again another memorable encounter. We're coming this afternoon with my publisher, where's her name? Where is she? She's somewhere here anyway. Oh yeah. And sitting over there, passing by, somebody says, "Hey, near there." That's my language, not Kiswahili, Gikuyu. So I looked around. This is very strange. And here he was. Can you stand? He knows so much about me. So he's talking Gikuyu, and he knows so much about me, about all the struggles I've gone through. And he was talking about them concretely. You remember when this play was done here, I was there. You remember your brother who was at this shop here, I was there. I know him, so it's really a pleasure meeting you here, so and I'm glad. Yeah. So, immediately about my mother who could not read or write. And as I said, had my going to school was her dream before it became mine. Okay? And I want to again go back to this day when I go to school, and I'm holding a slate in my hand. And the slate, the slates, the original tablet. In tablet you can rub it off, okay? We used to have tablets earlier before we actually give the name tablet, and we call them slates. And you wrote with chalk on them. Because once you did with chalk, then you can easily rub them and write them. You didn't have books or paper. So you could have the same slate, you could write over and over again. The only problem is you couldn't keep the notes, right? Because they fill up quickly. Okay, so, and this is what happened to me. So, I'm not going to school. I've brought a black slate and a white chalk for my writing material. We copy on our slates what the teacher has written on the blackboard. Later she comes around to grade on the slate, putting an X or a check against each word or number. Totals them up and then circles the cumulative number. At first I realized that after she has graded, I still have to wait for her to enter the number in a register for the record. So I rub off my work as soon as the teacher has graded it. But when I go home and my mother asks me what and how I had done, and I say, I rubbed it off, everything. She says, then don't. Wait for the teacher to tell you what to do. The teacher also corrects me, otherwise I will continue getting 0. And when later she starts writing on my slate 10 out of 10, and my mother asks me what I had done, and I say 10 out of 10, she would ask probing questions, ending with, "Is that the best you could have done?" This is a question she will keep on asking in response to my schoolwork, class exercises, and tests. Is that the best you could have done? Even when I tell her proudly that I scored 100%, she asks the question in different ways until I say, yes, I tried my best. Strange. She seems more interested in the process of getting there than the actual result. So I drift through the initial classes, not quite understanding why I've been moved from sub B to sub A to grade 1, all within the same quarter, a skipping of classes that continues from term to term, so that within a year, I'm in grade 2, and still my mother continues to ask, is that the best you could have done? I don't know about the best that I could have done. All I know is that one day I'm able to read and on my own a coil primer we used in class titled Some sentences are simple, like the one captioning a drawing of a man, an axe on the ground, his face grimacing with pain as he holds his left knee in both hands, drops of blood trickling down. The picture is actually more interesting than the words, which are Kamau etemete kuguru, etemete nigano. Kamau has cut himself, he has cut his leg, he has cut himself with an axe. I tackle long sent passages that do not have illustrations. There is a passage that I read over and over again. And suddenly, one day, I started hearing music in the words. God has given the echo a bit of land, abandoned in the water, full and luscious bush. The echo should praise the Lord all the time, for He has ever been generous to them. Even when not reading it, I can hear the music, the choice and arrangement of the words, the cadence. I can pick in one thing that makes it so beautiful and long-lived in my memory. I realize that even written words can carry the music I love in stories, particularly the chord melody. And yet, this is not a story. It is a descriptive statement. It does not carry an illustration. It is a picture in itself, and yet more than a picture and a description. It is music. Written words can also sing. Thank you, Mother. Thank you. The school has opened my eyes. When later in church I hear the words, I was blind, and now I see. From the hymn, Amazing Grace, I remember Kamadra School and the day I learned to read. The second is going to be from Weep Not Child. Now I've gone to school, kind of, but now there's a fictional character. This fictional character is called Joroge, and his experience in school actually similar to mine. But the section I want to read for you is a section where we are learning English, or rather Joroge is learning English, because remember English language is very, very important in the colonial center, or even today. It was the language of power. English is not better or worse than any other language. But as a language of power, it's like all the other languages of power. For instance, Spanish is a language of power in Spain, but it marginalizes other languages in Spain, like Catalan and so on. Spanish is a language of power in South America, but it marginalizes native languages in South America. Spanish in America is a marginalized language. It has to fight for kind of visibility and recognition as equal to English and so on. So a language can be a language of power in one place, it can be marginalized in another place, okay? This is the nature of languages. But not so much language, no, sorry, I withdraw that. It's not in the nature of language to be either marginal or power. Whether language is a language of power, it is a political, is a power relationship, not a linguistic relationship. Very important. So Arabic in North Africa, vis-a-vis French, so it has been marginalized. But Arabic also marginalized native Northern African languages. So it can happen not only within a European African language context, it cannot happen in other contexts as well, because we're going to think of language in terms of hierarchies of power. Anyway, English was a language of power in a Kenyan colonial society. So the lesson I'm going to be now is where we are being taught how to conjugate. And the teacher, in this case called Lucia, and she is actually the sister of Moehaki, another student, that girl. So she's teaching Jeroen how to conjugate, and she's puts on the blackboard, stand, Rogama, stand up. So the teacher is saying to the class now, children, I am standing up. What am I doing? The class, you are standing up. Again, you are standing up. Oh yes, ha. Jeroen. Oh, what's your name? Oh, yeah, Jeroen. Okay. Jeroen, come on, stand up. Good. Jeroen stood up. Learning English was all right, but not when he stood up for all the eyes to watch and maybe make faces at him. Jeroen, what are you doing? Jeroen, you are standing up. Teacher slightly cross now. Jeroen, please, I'm just asking you, listen carefully. What are you doing? Jeroen clears his throat and was sitting up. You are standing up. No. Listen to me, class. Come on. What are you doing? Jeroen was very confused. Hands were raised up all around him. He felt more and more foolish. So in the end, he gave up the very attempt to answer. I see a girl over there. Yeah. Moehaki. Stand up. Show these boys what a girl can do. Okay, Moehaki? So, Moehaki, what are you doing? Moehaki head bent on one shoulder. I am standing up. Good, girl. Now, Jeroen, What is she doing? Jeroge, I am standing up. The class giggled. The teachers were annoyed. Class, I'm asking, what is she doing? The class very confused now, singing, you are standing up. Still more angry, the teacher that is, I'm asking you, what is she doing? The class, more afraid, you are standing up. Look here, you stupid and little fools. How long do you take to cut things? Didn't we go over all this yesterday? If I come tomorrow and find that you make a single mistake, I'll punish you all severely. Do you understand? Your homework. Okay, that's how. I want to end really by, my story. I have gathered by now, I'm a storyteller, correct? Right? Yeah, I like telling stories, because stories are very important, I think. And I think people like to hear stories, don't they? Even when people like to hear a story more than they hear about the meaning of the story. You know, someone told you how they came from Miami to here, rather than the meaning of being in Miami. Or the significance of moving from Miami to here. Come on, tell us. Okay, so the second one is from my, I may just explain. Dreams in Time of War is a memoir about my childhood. Because I was born in 1908 on the eve of the Second World War and grew up and went to school like Jeroge in the era of Mau Mau, or the armed struggle against the British colonial oppressors in Kenya, okay? After Alliance, after this, when you finish come to the end of this memoir, you'll see I've been admitted to one of the leading secondary schools for Africans in Kenya at the time. It's a missionary school. And I went through, the scene is like this. I'm in a mission school, government school. My brother is in the mountains fighting against the British colonial oppressors. And every time I live in a kind of tension, whether I'll be thrown away from school once I discover my connection with my own brother or not. So that's one of the themes running in the second memoir called In the House of the Interpreter. But there are other questions that I go through. It's a Christian school, and I become I become what's called Jesus is my Savior movement. You know it? Jesus is my Savior type of thing. Okay. And I have problems. Because part of being my Savior is being to confess your sins. Well, and I remember we had 3 of us, Actually, we were converted by a follower. You know a person called Graham, Hislop, or Billy Graham? You ever heard of him? He used to come to Kenya quite a lot in those days, and he prayed his disciples, and one of them, converted me, okay, by painting fire hair, I'm telling you. So, anyway, so confession matters a good. You want to confess. Let me just give you an example. For example, when my time came to confess, the others would confess very wonderful sins, particularly sexual sins were more attractive than any other sin. In other words, everybody told little details about how they sinned. And I had not sinned then. So I did not know what to say about the particular aspect of sin. So when my time came, I found to my dismay that I had no sins to confess. Anita must have sinned. Everybody sinned. If we said that we had no sins, we are deceiving ourselves. So I had another friend who could also had nothing to confess. That his friend was Omanga had the same problem as me, a sinner who did not know his sins. We could only come up with very trivial ones like anger, rude words, or cheating by reading for an extra hour when we were required to be in bed by 9. But our third friend, who was our leader, he had plenty of sins, I'm telling you, confess. Especially since to do the harboring desires for the opposite sex. And on each occasion, he just about managed to eke a victory over Satan and all that, But the other thing I could not come to terms with, one was the color of Jesus. And what language, color of Jesus was a problem for me, right from early on, and what language, Jesus spoke and God. See, what happened was this, everybody, it's something which I really, first of all, I don't want to, it's bothered all my life. Because everybody said how God spoke to them. And they discussed it so real that when I close my eyes, I accept fear. But I never actually heard the voice. Okay? And the problem, because we're talking as if they actually talked and shook hands with that person. So that was one of the problems which I had. So the question of language, so I asked my friend, if he speaks to you, I wonder what language does he use to speak to you? Huh? And he was very sure that God spoke to him in English. Okay? So, and I had all those problems. And then, let me bring in my mother here. My mother was not a Christian, by the way, and she had never been to school, she had never been to church, and so on. And I came from a polygamous household, but later my mother and my father separated, and my mother went to live alone. So I moved from a huge family, to a single parent home headed by my mother. And occasionally, when I left school, me and my younger brother would go and join her in the fields. She was very good at roasting potatoes, and whenever she wanted us to go and work with her in the field, she would say she would roast potatoes for us in the field. But on this occasion, when we went to visit her, who turns up when the food is almost ready in the field? My father. Now, I had some kind of reconciliation with my father, but not my younger brother. My younger brother, who had never had the same kind of reconciliation with him that I once had, did not look on the visit generously. I'm sure he turns up only when he is hungry. My mother was prompt in her censure. He is still your father. Don't you judge him. Let him judge himself. To smooth the awkward moment, I asked my mother about the story she had once told us of how she and my father found each other. She just smiled and ignored my request. But my question, or the visit, must have mellowed her, for suddenly she started talking with uncharacteristic openness about not him, but about the tree. Tapping the field where there's a huge moguma tree, a kind of fig tree with really huge roots. It's very menacingly there, and it was always there. Okay? Now, for some reason, she starts about that tree. She believed it was sacred and healing. For some reason, she made us look at its roots carefully. They were strong and deep. And that's why a ngugumo or fig tree never succumbed to prevailing winds and changing weather and lasted many years. Children, do you know that this particular one has been here since before the coming of the colonizer, even before your great grandparents? When we asked her playfully how she knew its age, she said, children, it is time to resume work. But then, at some time, she answered, because people have lived here longer than the tree. They tell the story, and they pass on the story, and we add to the story. I never told her about my spiritual strivings, but she might have detected a restless in me, and the story might have been her way of touching on it. Many years later, my writing would start with a short story titled Ngugumo, or The Fig Tree. Thank you.
Approach them. If you have a question, please approach one of the microphones.
Hello, my name is Chad Stewart. I'm a professor in English here at Broward College, and I'd like to talk to you scholar to scholar for a second, if I may. Something came up in one of my classes when we were reading the novel, and we couldn't decide if it was a typo or if it was actually a difference between the editions. But somehow between the edition that the faculty got and the edition that the students got, there was some slight discrepancies in the pagination. But at the very end of chapter 6, right after Droge has witnessed the argument between his father and his mother about the strike, he prays. And it's interesting that you just mentioned religion. Yeah, it's the very end. It's the second from the end paragraph, chapter 6. Okay. The pages are probably different, that's why I went to it.
Yeah, the pages. Right. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Chapter 5. Oh, yes. Chapter 6, yes? Uh-huh.
Yes, at the very end of the chapter, in his bed, he knelt down and prayed. You got it?
Yes.
Okay. In his bed, he knelt down and prayed, God forgive me, for I am wicked. Perhaps it is me who has brought uncleanliness into our home. Forgive me my sins. Help my father and mother, O God of Abraham, Isaac, and my edition says Jacobo.
Yeah.
The student's edition was Jacob. And we did not mean to get into this discussion, but it turned into this big, long discussion, not to get too much into exegesis, but I was just curious, because I promised I would ask you, does it make a difference if it were Jacobo or Jacob, seeing as the character does appear in the novel?
Yeah, I think it doesn't really matter, but I think, okay, when among us, when we get, or when we used to get Christian names, which mostly came from the Bible, they would Kuyunize them. For instance, I grew up knowing people who were called Dawood. I did not know that Dawood was actually the same thing as David, for instance. Ibrahim would have been Ibrahim, Gaiwa Ibrahim. Ephraim, not Abraham. Isaac, I had a teacher called Isaac, but actually we call him Isaac. Right? And Jacob, we call it, because you say Jacob, we say Jacob with the O at the end, Jacob. But means the same thing as Jacob.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're reading too much into it at the time, that what you're saying.
Wait, what did you read into it? I'm curious.
We thought that somehow it would since it was Jiroge prayed, and since Jacobo was sort of this character that was working with Mr. Howlands, and we didn't know if it was some kind of indication where Jiroge's loyalties may lie or his hopes may lie. It turned into this long classroom discussion, and it was over an O. And I was just curious if that if it would have made a difference. To some of us it did. It was kind of, we were split down the middle as to whether or not it made a difference.
I don't know. I would like to read it again to see whether it makes a difference. Now they drew my attention, but it was just meant to. I should have been more. Probably was going now to be more consistent. Meaning, I'd have called Ibrahim, Idaka, and so people know that those Kikuyu nice form all those names.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a typo one way or another. I think maybe the second edition they thought that Jacob was an error, and they cut out the O probably.
Perhaps. It's one of those things that comes up that we really couldn't plan on.
Yeah, but Jacobo really was the original. Or without no is what I would put there.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks. But there's one typo. Let me just point one typo, which is in my edition. And so I was very annoyed with it actually. But I think I'm corrected now. In my opening sentence, in this edition, they had written Jacob caned, like beating him, caned him. She was small, and then he was very happy because we took him to school. So the contrary, how can you cane and then he looks happy, right? It was very so. I don't know, but then they corrected it to what it should be. The first line of the novel, Jacob Nyokabi called, like called him, come here. What do you have? Called? Okay.
We have caned, and I actually thought that was interesting too.
No, it's not caned. No, I mean,
that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, exactly. She called him, hey, Jerome, come here. Do you want to go to school? That's why he's happy. And that's because it's ridiculous for him to be caned, and then he's jumping about being very happy.
It's an entirely different character at that
point. Please correct that one. I'm hoping that Pearson will actually correct that one. Yeah, bring the second edition. Yeah, right. Any other question?
Good evening, I enjoyed your reading, by the way. The question is that with my child, if you were to write that today, what and if would be the struggle in Kenya? And then it was the colonization, but if you were to write that novel today, what and if would be the struggle?
Yeah, actually I have written, in a way I've written, since We've Not Child, I've written many more novels, by the way, which in fact also deal with the present. Let me just mention a few just for your information. My first novel really that I ever wrote was called The River Between, although it was the first to be published. The first to be published, but the second to be written, or the second to be written but the first to be published was actually We've Not Child. So by the time I wrote We've Not Child, I already had written The River Between, okay? But my third novel, and this was historical, in a sense, The River Between deals with the early part of the colonization. We've Not Child, during my own growing up, okay, and during the armed struggle. But there's another one called A Grain of Wheat, which deals with independence and after. When we get the independence in 1963 and after. And I've got another one called Petals of Blood, which now is full-blown critique of the post-colonial era. And there's a fourth one which follows, which is even more radical, not so much in terms of content, but in its very formation. It's called Devil on the Cross. I think Ricardo has, do you have it? Are you in? Do you? Yeah. Can you show them your edition of Devil on the Cross? This is a very important novel for me because I made another radical change. I wrote it in prison, in a maximum security prison, on toilet paper. So it's very, very extreme personal to me. Yeah, you can just show them. I just want to see them. See there. No, yeah. This is called Devil on the Cross, and it was written in Gikuyu language first. This is a translation from Gikuyu to English by me. It was written on toilet paper in 1978 in cell number 6, where I lived for a year without a name. So the only way I could name myself is by writing in Gikuyu and on toilet paper and this novel, which also became the founding text of modern Gikuyu literature. So I'm very, very proud of it. More proud in some ways than in terms of its impact than the other ones. Okay, the radical thing. Okay. After that, I never wrote another novel in English. And my other novel is one which he mentioned, Matigari, which was written in Gikuyu when I was in London. And when it was published in Kenya, the state sent police to arrest the character. Okay, when they found he was a character in fiction, they were so angry that they went and arrested the book instead. And my for in Gikuyu is probably in terms of sheer physical size. It's called Wizard of the Crow. And I dare you, who is here, to read Wizard of the Crow without laughing. You have to laugh, okay? If you find yourself crying, then there's something wrong with the with the novel. But I think you're more like to laugh than cry. But most likely, you'll mix tears with laughter. Wizard of the Crow, okay? So I've written many more, and Wizard of the Crow really does deal with contemporary, not only contemporary Kenya and Africa, but literally the contemporary third world situation. Because I was inspired by the struggles in Kenya for democracy during the Moi dictatorship. But I was living in London at the time in exile, and I used to work with other similarly engaged committees from Chile against Pinochet in Chile. You remember him, the guy? And there's another guy called Marcos from Philippines. You remember Marcos? And we were committed there. So we were coordinating because we happened to be in London at the same time. So we had to learn each other's literature quite a lot, and that's when the figure or the ruler in Wizard of the Crow, I think I drew from that experience in London and so on, So I have done quite a few things. My latest, let me tell you my latest. Can I tell you about my latest? Yeah, it's not a novel, but it's a work I'm very proud of. Because I worked with Hawaiians. You know Hawaii? You know Hawaii? You've been there or you've heard of it? Obama, the president, was either born there or grew up there. I think he was born in Hawaii. Remember? Obama. You know him? President Obama. He's the current president of America, Yeah, okay. He was born in Hawaii, okay? Right. But anyway, I'm working with the Hawaiians. Because they have their own language, not problem, but struggle over language anyway. And they have this journal which they've just brought out. It's called Hawaiian. Yeah, thank you. Hawaiian review. Okay. The current issue number 90, I think, or 79, 79, I think. The open poem is mine, and written in coil, right? So I'm very proud of it, and even you have not, you've been following me, but I dare you to have read that particular poem, because it's just come out. You better look at it. It's the longest poem in coil language ever, by the way. It's a kind of epic, right? And it's a conversation with a Samoan writer from Samoa who haven't been in Hawaii at the same time. And, Albert went. He's Samoan, but he lives in New Zealand. So he wrote about his wife's garden in New Zealand. And we happened to be together at the same conference. And then I said, okay, I'm a poet also. I want to challenge you, like poets sort of challenge each other. So I wrote a poem called The Other Garden. That's my wife's garden in California, Hawaii. And I wrote it. I'm very proud of that one. I had to tell you that story. Okay? So you find the journal, Hawaii. Please get the current journal of that poetry review, or Google it. It has actually a very interesting concept where poets and short story writers have a call and response structure where you write a poem and somebody else answers you. You write a story and somebody responds to your story in their story, like a conversation among writers and poets. Look it up. Commercial for the review. Any more questions or?
Thank you for being here. I enjoyed your book, and I'm looking forward to reading some of the other ones. I'm always interested to know about the writer's process, kind of the process you go through in putting these together. With particular, as you look back at your process, further back in the past when you first got started as compared to now.
The process is what I find is how the process is very similar. It never changes. First, for me, I have struggled, real struggle in getting an idea for a story or no. Once I get the idea, I'm quite good at working anywhere, anytime of day or night or any place. But before that, I have a real problem. And also the other problem one gets into is one of what's called writer's block. Every time I write, I come to a section where I just feel I don't know what to do. Because nothing's for me, it's not working for me. But I have to remember that a writer's block is always followed by a release of imagination. And some of the stories telling you, no, I don't want to go that way. You see, you're trying to take the story where it is refusing to go, and you're trying to force it. Something mean that you hold back a little bit and listen to the story, and it's going to guide you to where it wants you to go. Okay? Not the other way around. When you try to force it to go this way, it's refusing. Okay, when it gets its own life, it begins to guide you. Okay? And if you try to force it in that direction, it refuses. Then you get a block. There's a kind of struggle going on in you, trying to make it go this way and say, no, I can't, I don't go that way. No, I refuse. Okay. I'm not going to move. Okay? Right, yeah. It happens every time. And just now my kids, well, how many kids there actually? Let me just tell you this, by the way. I have 9 children. Okay? And the only reason I'm saying this is because, when people ask me how many children, sometimes I get to react, how, 9? Right? Yeah. And I said, no, 9 only. Yeah. But then I grew up in a very much bigger household of 27, so for 9 is not too many. It's just not, there are fewer than 27. I grew up around, okay, right? So, but my kids some of them are, one is a professor of English at Cornell, and he's writing a novel, or rather he's become a novelist. Another is my daughter who is in Finland, and she wrote a novel. She just published a novel with Simon & Schuster called The Fall of Saints. And I got there are several of them, about half of them are writing. So this is very interesting. They are very imaginative, and they are coming up with lots of ideas and so on, And I cannot sit there I'm totally mesmerized by what they are able to do and what they are doing and so on, because they are faster, they can imagine it much more quickly than I could, so I don't know whether it's my ears or whatever. But anyway, that's one of the processes. But you have to believe in yourself. I said earlier, imagination is a great equalizer. Please, imagination is the greatest equalizer. Imagination does not know woman, man, child, adult, teacher, student, and somebody can tell you a story, say somebody and they're struggling with words, and you can even help them, yes, this way, because the story itself is so interesting that even the words, when there's a hesitance in the word, you kind of help them along, okay? Or read the story and the grammar is so awkward, but you like the story underneath it, also you're reading through, So that's because of the imagination. Imagination is the greatest equalizer. And it's what makes us really human anyway. Because remember, you cannot even act except imagine it in their head before they can actually put the building on paper. We can imagine the future or the past. We can go to our homes and back. Just now we can greet our mother or our brother. We know where they are immediately. And sometimes you can even be spontaneous. You can know about your brother in New York, another one in Atlanta, and they are there with your sister, and you see them, and then you are back here. That is enabled by this great thing we have called imagination, meaning the capacity to draw pictures in time and time machine, and also space across. Like you go to China, and even when you're not been to a place, like I say Beijing, where I've never been, actually I get a mental picture of Beijing. It may not correspond to the real picture of Beijing, but I do form one fairly quickly. Right? So, imagination is a great equalizer, and each one of us can use it. And we do use it, but it needs nourishment through reading, music, art, and so on, but also writing and working in all those areas as well. Yeah.
I have a quick question. If you were to reflect back on your decision to start writing in Kikuyu, in what way would you say that has affected your acceptance within Kenyan society? Because you went through a process where you first write in your native language, and then eventually you would translate to English, and then other people translate into other languages. Will you say that has made you better appreciated within Kenyan society? That's one leg of my question. The second leg of my question is, if you are saying that African literature ought to be reading in African languages, and we have so many of them. In Nigeria alone, we have more than 200 languages. Don't you think there is something?
Yeah, I say congratulations. You have that many? That's good. So imagine all those stories that are hidden, when all the music. Can you say there are too many songs in the world?
Probably not.
Can you say, let's only sing like the Beatles, for instance, or like Springs, what do you call him? The guy in New Jersey. Yeah, that we sing like blues all the time, all around, all the time. It's wonderful that music young sing this, Indians, Africans, they have all these musical voices, the same, quite frankly, in the case of languages. But anyway, let me say about being appreciated in Kenya. No. The middle class think that I'm doing something terrible, making them have to deal with this. We're trying to run away from these languages, from our own backwardness, irrationality, darkness, and you, Kogi, after being found the light in writing in English and being because of light, accepting that, now you're telling us, no, we should not join you in, no. It's terrible. Terrible. African languages think. They will think. Or rather, there's no rationality. There's only backwardness in these languages, And if you want to go to heaven, you see in heaven, heaven is divided into several zones. Okay? There's an English zone, there's a French zone, a Portuguese zone, I think Italian zone, German zone. There's no Yoruba zone or Kiswahili zone. So you go to find your place as a Yoruba person or as a, you have to English. But who said that heaven or whatever God's domain is? Now he is such a racist that he chose only European languages. Why would you call God a racist and be proud of it? Right? Okay, so what I say is that really all languages have something to give. There's no language which is inherently better or worse than another language. But the problem we have with languages is a question of power. Power relationship between languages. Okay? There's some languages see themselves as have more power over others because we can see the language as hierarchy. My language is better than yours. Okay? English and Spanish, they cannot coexist and give to each other. No. One has to be better than the other. Right? Why? But language can do the other thing. They can also lead to each other, not in terms of hierarchy, but in terms of a network where they give to each other. And translation, in a way, shows us, not yet, but shows what's possible between languages that they can give to each other. Just the same way as when I read Greek theater, written in classical Greece and Greek and so on, I'm very happy that I can access it also in English or any other language. Okay? I'm happy when I read Russian literature of 19th century, Tolstoy, and I'm glad I can access him in English, but I could as easily access them in Yoruba, why not? Or in Kiswahili, or in Chinese, Mandarin, or the other one, there are two, or in Japanese, why not? See, we had to find a way of rejecting this hierarchy of power related to languages. But saying that, given that there are some languages of power, yes, we have to master the language of power, whatever it is. Today in America, the language of power is English. So if you're an immigrant and you're here, you have to master that language. Don't play around with saying I'm not good. I'm very revolutionary, I want to learn the language. Then when you go to ask for a job at this college, they say, oh no, okay? No, you master it. But master it does not then mean that you abandon whatever language you come from. That's the biggest fallacy. Okay? If you're coming to speak Ebonics, why can't you have more Ebonics and this other English of power? I mean, they're not mutually contradictory. those who speak that language, they're not speaking bad English. It's a different system. If you're from Haiti, are you going to say they're speaking bad French in Haitian Creole? Right, no. It's not bad French. Okay? It's a different system of language. But since French is the language of power, then you have to master French. You have to survive in our society as well. Yeah. So what I'm saying, there's no contradiction between using African languages, writing in them, and also their works also being available in English and French. Just the same way, I can tell you, I've been translating Moliere via English into the Koyo. Because I see this place of Moliere I was laughing, the place being done in Koyo, and I think if I had put time on writing Shakespeare and all the great masters of English and French and English languages into a Koyo language, for instance. But there's no reason why I should say that I can only translate masters of European language and not masters also of Asian languages or Native American languages. Okay? Because to say so would be accepting the same hierarchy of power relation between languages.
Well, I'd like to say thank you, and everyone a big applause for Ngugi. And it will be